Boom. Boom. What's up, freaks, friends, lunatics, humans, upright, bipedal, homo sapiens? How are you this wonderful morning? I noticed that you're seeing the pictures of these two donkeys here and probably wondering, what is it exactly he's talking about? Or you're looking at the picture of these two donkeys and you're thinking to yourself, I know exactly what he's talking about. I get it. He's trying to make a funny. Well, if you think it's funny, it's okay, because it's probably quite funny. But the truth is, I'm not just trying to be funny. I'm actually trying to make a point. I grew up in a household where my dad and mom were exceptionally conservative, and they didn't often use vernacular that many would consider to be coarse or harsh. They didn't speak in ways that many would consider to be normal now, but to some would be exceptionally offensive. My mom and dad did not speak, they didn't say the word jackass like that often. But when they did, it had a very poignant impact. And there was one particular time when my dad said this to me, and he said it in a passing way, and it made me stop and think. He said, son, sometimes, because we were talking about a mistake I had made in a party, like at a group with a bunch of my sibling and peers. And I'd said something foolish, which if you know anything about someone like myself, it's not all that misplaced or miscommon for it to occur. And so I said something foolish, like we all are often to do. My father, being a fantastic, amazing father that he was, just chose to correct me. And that correction came in the form of using an analogy. He said, son, you often have a lot of good things to say, but you need to temper your zeal with wisdom. Often when you open your mouth, you're like a braying jackass. Now, when you hear that, you might giggle. You might, jackass, that's hilarious. But here's the truth, though. He wasn't trying to be coarse or harsh or mean. He was trying to be instructional. He was simply trying to point out to me that you're a very, very, very valuable tool. You're very helpful. You're amazing, son. And your resources, your assets, your skills, your abilities, they're amazing. Just like a donkey. They can do so very much. And on a farm where heavy machinery is not around, a donkey is an invaluable tool to move heavy things from one place to another. Or as far as reliability, they're amazing. Companionship, they're fantastic. I have a friend who talks often about how the donkey he had on his farm was like his best friend and lived forever, according to him. But also, they're stubborn. And if you try sometimes to get them to do the simplest of tasks, it's going to be quite difficult to get them to do it, especially if they get in their mind they don't want to do it. Now, I often am a very stubborn person. My dad told me, son, I know you want to go in the army. Whatever you do, don't go infantry. My wife said, honey, I just would prefer you not go into a job where you're going to get hurt. Infantry. I picked the infantry. 11 Bravo. Straight up. Actually, I was 11X for a while. And then I had some complaints and some difficulties and some arguments and went Bravo. I thought I was going to be Billy Badass and go at 18 series side. Or maybe go full-on airborne and go hardcore, I thought. Anyway, everything I've done in my life has been stubborn and anti-establishment. Hardcore anti, right? Sometimes anti just for the sake of anti, which is dumb. But how often in our lives do we have resources and assets right at our fingertips? Hold on, don't step away, listen. And if you can't listen right now, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna put it on a YouTube video. I'm gonna put it on Instagram. I'm gonna put it everywhere so you can listen to it later, so you don't have an excuse or a reason not to say I didn't know. But what if in life there's a chance we're abandoning our resources or assets because we're just being a braying jackass? What if we're actually just letting go of what's right in front of us that we need to grab a hold of and use as a good resource? What if we're just walking right by it? What if we're walking right by it and abandoning it and leaving it there because of whatever reason we give? Whatever the reason is, it's just mostly because we're being a braying jackass and we need to get over ourselves. We need to quit our complaining. We need to quit our whining. We need to quit our bitching and constantly moaning about things. I say we, I mean me, folks. Humans, bipedals, I mean me. So if you're like, well, this guy seems real preachy, I don't know. Who does he think he is? I'd love to introduce you to myself. I'd like to introduce you to myself. Anybody else seen the Ben Stiller's movies then? All right. Him, me, him, me. The point is that I am absolutely 100% culpable as far as these indictments I'm handing out here. I'm responsible. I am also in need of these course corrections. And like when you hear the analogy, it's so overused. You're like, whatever. I know exactly what he's going to talk about. But you know what? It's not what you think. And your first reaction, your first response to immediately dispel any kind of indictment or indication that you might need to change, that first finger on that spot, that right there, it's very, very likely that you're the one that needs to change. I know for a fact that what I'm saying right now, what I'm calling out is actually something I need to change in me. There's a weakness in me. There's a softness in me. There's a desire for good, comfortable warmth in me. Now, is that bad? No, absolutely not. But you need to know what that is in you. And you need to call it what it is. And you need to not for 1 second look at that softness in you and say, it's hardness. Don't look at that weakness in you and call it strong. Call it weakness. Deal with it the way you deal with it, but call it what it is. Jocko Willings calls it extreme ownership. I call it waking up. You can call it whatever you want, but if you decide to call it anything other than what it is, you're a braying jackass. You're screaming and yelling about your symptoms or your issues. By the way, I have symptoms and issues. I have diagnoses. I have my VA rating, and I would love to share with you my DD-214. So I'm speaking from experience and from a place of personal representation. From one combat PTSD veteran to another, listen to me. And listen hard and listen strong. Stop using your symptoms as an excuse to behave like a braying jackass. Stop using your military deployment or activity as an excuse. Stop it. It does not excuse anything. You did what you did because you wanted to do it. And if you're listening to this podcast and you were drafted, my goodness, I would love to sit down and talk with you and have nothing but one-on-one conversations with you. It's very unlikely I'm talking with someone right now who was. So in that case, most of the people who have a DD-214 in their hands or in their storage unit or on file at their local county or wherever they have it that are listening to this podcast, they also are able to understand what I'm saying because they made a decision. They made a choice. They made a choice. You made a choice. We made a choice. We made a decision. We took an oath. We made a promise. However you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to say. We are responsible. We are culpable. It didn't happen to us. The bombs and the bullets and the terribleness did not happen to us. We came to it and it occurred. And it was a part of our experience. But we are not victims of that thing. You understand? We are not victims of our occurrences. We are experiencers. We are experiencers. We are partakers. We are, walkers on this path. That's it. But we are not victims. My veteran status did not get thrown at me. It was handed to me as a result of the work I chose to do. Do you understand that? The work that I chose to do. No longer will you wake up late and say, I'm sorry I couldn't get up. You should get up and say, I wouldn't get up. I had a hard time with my diet is bullcrap. I chose not to eat well because I didn't want to enough. I'm not talking about beating yourself up. You need to learn to hold yourself in safe love and compassion. You need to have a safe space. You need to heal. You need to love you. You do. And that is not hippie garbage bullshit. That is real. That is love. That is truth. You know this. But at the same time, if you do not meet that with a measure of combative, instructional, knife hand voices towards yourself, you are being ill-advised. My friends, my humans, my fellow compatriots, you are not doing this alone, and therefore, since we are doing this together, I refuse to allow you to be a lazy piece of crap right next to me, as your fellow battle buddy, as your compatriot, as the individual with whom you are working together with. I demand that you work as hard as I do. Why? Why would I demand that? Why would I compel you to work as hard as me? Because I see the value that it has brought me. Because I see the healing that I have felt. Because I see the changes that can happen. And if I did anything less than demand, I feel like at my grave, I would go to it knowing that there was a chance I could have done or said more for that individual that took their own lives as a result of the impact that their military service had. I feel like maybe there's a chance I could have said more. So this is me saying more. This is me doing the more. Just taking the extra step, going the extra mile. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anybody else. Stop it. Love you enough to stop it. That is not some new-aged hippie idea. And I'm all right with new-age hippies, by the way. But that is not what that is. That is a very logical, simple fact. You are a valuable individual. You have intrinsic worth. Do you understand that? And because of that, and as a result of that intrinsic worth, you should be compelled to develop you, to grow you. And if you're looking for a sign, some sort of symbol, then you're foolish. Stop looking for the signs and symbols. Stand up and look around you. Look up for a moment. Outside, look up. That's your sign and symbol that you should change. Look up. Visit Veterans for Natural Rights on Facebook, on Instagram. And if you're looking for contact, if you want to reach out, TimothyLocklear.com. That's my website. It's got an archive of older podcasts. I would absolutely love to talk with you more. Listen to me. When I say this, I mean this. You are not alone, and you are not doing this alone.